Hello guys, and welcome back to the How2Animate YouTube channel. And I apologise for being away for so long. I know it's been quite a few months since I posted a tutorial video. Basically when I launched How2Animate Tutor Service, I was expecting a couple of students here and there, but I've literally been inundated and fully booked since I started, which is great. You know, students I've had have been absolutely amazing. A lot of them have got their first jobs in the industry now. It's all going really well. But yeah, I've just been way too busy just to, you know, sit down and actually find time to create good quality videos for you guys. So I thought I'd start with something a bit basic, just to sort of get back into the flow of it. It's been a while since I've done this. Looking back at my older videos, I think like the first video I ever posted on this YouTube channel was how to do a character jumping on the spot. Just looking at it, and it's terrible. So I thought I'd redo it. Okay, so let's make a start. Okay, got our base pose, typical kind of character idle. So this is where the character would be idling from. Player then pushes the button, and what we want to do for the sake of this animation is actually start with the anticipation. If this was going into the engine, we wouldn't necessarily go into an anticipation, and we'll go into that a bit later. Okay. So what we want to do is basically start tucking the character down and creating a bit of a squash pose. So the idea behind anticipation is it's basically energy build up. So we're going to be going in the opposite direction, so she needs to go in a down position before she goes up. Okay, so when posing, just try and create nice strong poses. So do take your time and craft nice looking poses. Okay, so we're going to be blocking this out first of all. You could either put this into stepped keys, but what I prefer to do is just move everything back onto ones. It's just find it an easier way of working. I'm not really too concerned about timings at this point. It's literally just getting the core of the animation in and working, and then we're going to start creating the breakdowns as well, and breaking it down far enough where when we do the timing pass, it should be almost there. Okay, so with this character as well, brilliant rig by the way. I bought this a couple of days ago. Beautiful rig. The way it's kind of laid out is very much layered, so you've got like the core of the character. She has got tons of accessories. Like all the hair's animatable, all this cloth stuff is, but it's best to start with the core of the character first and then add that stuff as like secondary action afterwards. Okay, so just crafting a bit of a tuck pose here. Okay, that should be low enough. Let's come back to it afterwards. Okay, so after that we have our stretch pose. So we're going to go from, it's like a reversal of energy. Before we do that, what I want to do is create another anticipation pose here, because she's going to sort of tuck down, but then we want to keep her there and keep her going in that direction. So what I'm going to do is just kind of move this across here and just let the computer help me out with the breakdown that I need. So I want to favour this side. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll save probably 7. Save 7 off, and then I'll just bring everything back. That way when we come to the timing pass, I can just stretch this out for as long as I want, and she'll start going down, then she'll ease into the down position, build up energy, and then we'll get a nice quick release. Okay, so stretch pose, here we go. So a thing to consider here, because she's in a cool pose, you know, her legs are quite far apart. What we kind of need to do is start raising her up and then figure out what to do with her legs, because we can't get really a nice stretch pose if we have the feet so far apart. So I think what we're going to do is kind of cheat that a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to zero off everything on the spine just to make sure that's nice and clean. Just going to check the rotates as well, make sure there's nothing too crazy going on there. All this arm stuff here is kind of useless, so I'm going to zero that off, make that nice and clean as well. Same with this arm. This arm's a bit better, but again, I'll start from scratch there. Yeah, the head's all messed up. So we're basically uncoiling the character at this point. Usually when you do poses, you kind of push the poses, you know, and your character can get a little bit kind of messed up. So if you are doing a fresh pose that's not based on the previous thing, then it's generally better to try and work as clean as possible with these rotates and kind of almost start again from scratch, just so it's nice and clean. Okay, there's a couple of ways what you could do with the arms. There's a couple of ways you could approach this. During the stretch pose, they could either be in the down position, like she's kicked off the floor, her arms are still down, or she could actually she could lead with her arms coming up. For this, because of the character and because of the base pose, I've got a feeling that it would be best to have them down, but we'll see how it feels when I scrub through in a minute. So with the legs here, what we kind of need to do is bring them back into a more centralized position. I'm just going to get rid of that roll as well. Okay, and we kind of want them facing forward as well. I'm hoping this will happen so quick you won't actually notice the slide. Okay, and we want to kind of start leaning her back a bit as well. Okay, and then keep these arms facing down towards the floor. Okay, so we're looking for a stretch pose. So we could stretch the legs out a little bit, and we could start stretching her just a little bit as well. Okay, so we want those shoulders dragging down. That's fine. Let's gonna fix that a little bit. Great. And we also want to start rolling these feet here. So where's the toe roll here? Okay. Save that. Okay, so probably need to go a little bit more extreme with this. I think what we could get away with is actually her coming off the back foot. So I might actually start raising this foot a bit earlier. Take that roll off, we don't need that. Let's see if we can get this down a little bit more. Okay, she's a bit off centre, so I'm just going to try and centralise her a little bit. Bring this pole vector over just to create a nicer shape there. Okay, so see, I do spend a little bit of time just getting the poses right. Okay, so this was the pose before, this is the pose now, so it's definitely stronger, so I'll just cut and paste that on 3. Okay, that'll do for now. Okay, next. So we've got a stretch pose, then we are going to do the apex. Okay, so I started leading with this foot. So, top of the apex, this will be the highest point of the jump here. So, just going to shift all our IKs up at the same time. Okay, and what we want is a nice kind of sort of tuck position in midair. Okay, so I'll kind of bring the pole vectors out a little bit. At this point, she would be starting to lean forward a little bit more as well. Okay, so we want a nice in-air pose. So the arms at this point would be coming up. Okay, we'll have that leg down a little bit at the elbow. down, I'd say. So I'm going to see if I can straighten that spine a little bit as well. Okay, I'll probably get those feet up a bit more as well. Just going to round her back off. Oh, okay, so I've still got some translation values on there. Get rid of those. Okay, so what we're looking for is a nice silhouette in midair. Okay, so that's tuck position number 1. So we actually need 2 poses in midair as well. So from the stretch we have tuck 1. Tuck 2, what we're going to do is basically swap the feet over. So we're leading with this foot here. Okay, so that's gone up first. That's ever so slightly higher than this one. For tuck 2, what we're going to do is start dropping that one and have that one rise up. Okay, because this one's going to be the one that comes down first. Going to just give everything a little bit of a nudge here and there. The arms are still going to be rising up at this point, so I want to keep those coming upwards. Okay, give the head a bit of a nudge. You don't want the character to die between these 2 poses. You want a nice bit of ambient movements. This is where we're going to put the hang time, basically. So I'm going to add quite a few frames up the top. Okay, so the character needs to still stay alive during this section as well. Okay. And just going to raise her up a little bit as well. Okay, so there should be something like this. Slight difference between these 2 poses. Actually, let's lower that foot even more. There we go. Great. Okay, so we've got stretch, tuck 1, tuck 2. Okay, now we're going to start dropping the character again. So select all of the IKs and start getting her towards the floor. Okay, so what we need to do is stretch towards that floor, anticipating the land. Okay, so depending on how cartoony you wanted it, you could stretch that leg out quite a lot. Okay, just gonna start arching her back this way. Okay, this foot is going to start to come down. Let's keep the pole vectors nice and clean towards her body. Her arms at this point are going to lag behind quite a bit, so this is going to be where they do their main reversal. Alright, so the arms are going to be doing something like this. The head is going to be anticipating the floor, but I kind of want to, if this rigger will actually let me, which it won't. That's a shame. Would have liked to have stretched that up a bit. I don't think there's a way to do it. Okay, never mind. We'll do it a bit with the chest, so I'll just kind of stretch her chest up a bit. Alright. That's looking okay. Let's see if we can get that foot a little bit closer to centre. So what we're going to do here is we need to get her back to her idle. So what we need to do at this point is have her land quite centrally with both feet. You can do a down position for that. She's then going to hop up a little bit, and her legs are then going to come back into the idle position. We wouldn't want to land like this, I don't think. I think it would look a little bit ugly. So I kind of want to have the actual land tuck pose here. Quite narrow in its stance, just so it looks nice and controlled. Okay, so bring the character down. Pole vectors are going to come out a little bit to accommodate for that. All these rotates and translates are messed up here, so I'm just going to zero those off. Get back to clean rig. You see how the rotate there is kind of messed up because of that. That's fine. So bring her quite far down. So depending on how high the jump is, will determine how much of a down position you have. So be careful of that. If you can do a big jump, you can need a strong down position. A smaller jump, not much at all. You know, a person catching their weight from a small jump position, they wouldn't come down as much. So okay, so here's the landing pose that I've chosen. You see how it comes from the stretch into this. The reason I've done this and I've not started to bring her forward at this point is I kind of want a nice overlapping action from all this stuff up the top. Okay, so the core has come down and hit its lowest point. Then immediately she's going to bounce up again. Okay, and then this is when all of this upper body stuff starts absorbing that low position that just happened a frame before. So it's kind of offsetting everything that happens. We don't want everything to arrive at the same time, and that's how we get a nice kind of weighty animation. Okay, so during this frame, her hips are coming up again, and then she is rotated forward, and her arms are coming down. Once we get a few more frames into this during the time pass, then I'll start offsetting this even more. But just to get the basic motion in here for now, let's just kind of lower the arms into this position. So like I said before, the idea behind this is she lands narrow with the feet. She then hops up. Okay, so she's going to come up, and then the next frame is going to be even higher. Okay, so a little bit of hang time in the air, and this gives the feet a chance to start moving across back into their original idle position. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just quickly copy and paste this. So we don't want them fully in this position just yet, but I do want something quite close. So maybe something like 11. And just move that back. Okay, so at this point they're going to be kind of up in the air a little bit, so it's going to be a little tiny hop. Okay, and then with the upper body, this is actually going to start to rotate back into a slightly more normal position. So I'm going to zero that off. Okay, and then I'll start getting these arms back up towards their idle position. Okay, so something like this. And then I'm just going to grab that idle position here because I need to get back to it. So I need to figure out if I do need another breakdown between that or not. That might actually be... yeah, that works quite well. I'm just going to move her back a bit because the actual arc is a little bit abrupt. Okay, I think that'll do. What I'd like to do as well is another little settle at the end. So I'm just going to put a key here just to save off the idle pose again. I'm going to make this a slight low position and slight back. So just for that final hop as she lands, I do want to acknowledge there's a bit of weight there and have a bit of a settle. Okay, so let's give everything a little bit of a nudge here and there. A bit of a nudge on the hips. Okay, and let's move that back. So, okay, maybe just a little bit lower. Okay, and then a bit more on that, and probably a bit more on that. And I think that's good to go. Okay, just going to select everything on the character. Just going to go through and set a key on everything just to make sure. Okay, so with the base poses all done, I'm now ready to start spacing this out. So I'm animating at 30 frames a second. Okay, so what I need to do is decide on this anticipation and how long to have it. So I've started moving the feet in a little bit just to kind of avoid a snap between here and here, because it's quite an extreme change of shape. So what I'm going to do is add a couple of frames here at the start. Okay, and then a couple of frames here as well. So we want a nice kind of build up of energy. This then allows quite a few frames here to reposition these feet nicely. So don't worry about the feet sliding in there, we'll fix that later. But main concern is just to get the right amount of build up beforehand. So I think about that would do. Okay, and then we have this massive change of shape here, so we'll see what the computer gives us between that by adding a frame. Okay, that's not too bad. We need to reshape that, but that'll probably be fine. Into the stretch. Okay, and then we want to add a few frames there, getting up into the air. Okay, between here and here is the hang time, so that's going to be quite a few frames of hang time here. Okay, and then coming back into the land, maybe 3 frames there. Okay, space this out by another frame, I'd say, maybe another one. Okay, give that a couple of frames. Okay, a little bit of hang time in the air here to then land back into the idle. I want it to come down quite quick here, and then a few frames of settle at the end. Okay, so just kind of guess out what the timing should be and then give it a play. Okay, not bad. Probably a little bit too much hang time. I'm just going to reduce that by a couple of frames. Okay, right, that's not looking too bad. Great, okay, first curve we're going to take a look at is of course the translate Y, the up and down of the hips. Very, very messy, you'll see. So let's set this to auto. Actually, I'm going to set everything on the character to auto for now. Auto does a good job at this point of approximating what you want. Okay, so what we're looking for here is a build-up of energy. So the shape we're looking for is actually something a bit more like this, where it favours this end a bit more. Could probably add another key in there just to keep her a bit lower for longer. Okay, and then the reversal, we want to break the tangents there. Okay, for the energy to come up really, really quick in this direction. So make sure that's nice and dynamic coming off there. If you've spent all that time building up the energy here, then you want a quick release. Okay. This is going to be where we put our hang time in. So what I like to do here is add a proper apex key on the Y there, and then smooth these two out around. Okay, so this up the top should be flat, and then these two controlling keys here are what give the hang time. Very important to have a nice smooth curve through that bit there. Okay, gravity takes over again. Don't worry about the feet, we'll fix those in a second. Okay, so we want a bit more like this kind of shape coming down towards the floor nice and fast. Hits the floor there. Probably want another key there just to keep her down a bit longer. Okay, she then comes up. Second apex is here. That's probably good enough actually. So just going to smooth all of that out. She then comes back down and hits the low point again. So we'll just smooth that out. Okay. So if we play this now, this is going to be slightly messed up, but it's important to get that Y curve sorted as soon as possible. So now we have to do the feet and kind of follow the same pattern as what we did before. So we're looking at the translate Y. Right, so at this point during the stretch, we want that again to be a linear thing. Okay, and then we want to delay it by a frame. Have it stuck on the floor for a little bit longer. And we'll fix the sliding in a second, getting into that. Okay, so same again, we kind of want a apex key about here with 2 controlling keys around it. Okay, and we kind of want a little bit of a delay on that as well. We don't want the hips and the leg to come up exactly the same time. Okay, and this is the leg that kind of lags behind, so it'll be kind of like that, just tucked in there as it comes down. We want this to come down on linear. There's no way she could actually slow down that foot to get into that, so I don't think we actually need that key there. And probably just bring it in by a frame. Okay, and we'll sort that bit out in a second. Let's do the other foot. So set the other apex. And it can look really nice if you offset what the feet are doing, which is what we was kind of trying to do in the initial posing. So this foot here is leading the jump, comes up, and then it starts to come down a little bit sooner in anticipation for that landing. So you want this kind of thing where the feet are kind of swapping positions. Okay, again that's going to come down on linear. It doesn't know the floor is there, so it's come down like that. Okay, let's play that and see how it feels. So the next area I'm going to take a look at is the chest area here. It looks a bit kind of weird throughout. So I'm just going to offset that a bit. And then that looks okay. The build-up of energy, she comes down, that's fine. The release of energy, like the reversal, looks a little bit odd there. So I'm just going to straighten her up. And this bit looks particularly weird where she kind of snaps forward and then holds it. So I want to offset that so she doesn't hit that quite so hard. And then give a little bit more texture here as well for the reversal, and probably set that to spline. Okay, there we go. And on the way down, this is looking okay. The reversal here I think happens a little bit too late, so I'm just going to move that along. There you go, that looks better. And yeah, probably offset that as well. Okay, let's have a look at the feet, because the feet are a little bit messy. Coming down here, so we've got this kind of bit where she anticipates the floor, so I kind of want the toes to be curled that way at that point actually. And then we've got this really sort of horrible swimmy motion where it kind of comes through and finds its position on the floor. That needs to happen over a frame really. Okay, make that a bit higher. There you go. So that's kind of what you want. You want the heel contact, and then it's snapped down in a frame. If I was getting really sort of picky, then I could kind of offset the toes a bit and just rotate those up. There we are. And the other foot coming down. Doesn't look too bad. Oh, it does actually look terrible. Okay, so same thing here. I'm just going to just copy that and make sure that's nice and flat on the floor there. Okay. You kind of want to keep the feet a little bit alive. You don't want them to kind of just stop like that. So what I like to do here is just use a little bit of toe roll just to give a bit of texture. So at this point it's still toe rolled up, and then probably back down. Just so they don't kind of completely die, because it looks a bit weird. Okay, let's sort the feet out during this bit as well. So we want to take the toe roll off. Okay, and of an up position here as well. Let's have that learned a bit sooner as well. Great, okay, this is starting to get there. Right, next thing to take a look at is the arms. They don't flow particularly well with the animation. So let's take a look at what's going on. So we've got the anticipation. So like I say, there's a couple of ways you can do jumps. A way I could have approached this is actually have them rotate back this way and then kind of come up on this arc, sort of drive her up so that the arms would be leading. But the way I've chosen to do this is actually kind of like a tuck method, where they kind of tuck in this way, and then during this section here they kind of lag behind. So both kind of work, you know, quite well. But we do need to probably set these to spline just to give it a nice kind of feel up the top there. Okay, and then we probably want to start offsetting the elbow and the wrist as well. So let's just offset that by a couple of frames there, and a couple of frames there. Okay, and I think in general they arrive a little bit late. I like the offset, and like they're still up at this point, but because it's all just a bit late, they feel a bit sticky. So I'm just going to get rid of some of that texture there. There we go, that's already starting to feel smoother there. And then I'm going to just offset them by another frame. There we go, and then probably offset the wrist by another frame as well. So it's starting to get nice and floppy for the landing there. For this bit here, and they come up again, that's probably too much texture at that point, so actually we need that one. Get rid of that, and that probably needs offsetting by a couple of frames as well. There we are. Okay, so I've got this into a state where I'm happy enough to move on to all the extra little bits this rig has got. Now, the rig you're using might not necessarily have this, but if it does, it's a really nice little detail to put on all the cloth bits, all the hair bits, and animate those yourself. Can be a really good exercise in learning how to animate stuff like that. So I would suggest try and do it yourself. Don't rely on physics or anything, because you know you can do some really nice stuff with cloth and everything. It's very artistic, you know, and you don't really want to leave that up to a physics simulation to do that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's start with the cape here. Okay, so with this rig you have to enable cape visibility. There we are. So just give you a basic FK chain. Okay, so let's find a nicer position for it in the idle position. Slightly touching the floor there. Something like that. Okay, so as it comes down for the anticipation, what it's going to do is actually going to probably start wrapping around her back. Okay, I'm just going to switch this over to world because that makes it a lot easier to animate them all at once. So it's going to wrap around her back, and then this bottom bit here will then come back on itself to kind of lay on the floor. Okay, so see, there's only a certain amount of accuracy you can get with an FK chain, but you can get pretty close just by eyeballing it. There we go. So it's going to lie on the floor at this point. Okay, so it's going to lie on the floor up until the point where she actually jumps. Okay, so up until 12. Alright, at this point, I'm going to zero all that off because that is useless now. Okay, and then reshape it to this stretch pose. So it's not too far off actually. Just going to add a little bit of rotation here and there so it's not totally flat. But yeah, that's basically exactly what I want it to do. It's going to basically get left behind as she starts to come up. Okay, so she rises up. So at this point it's still going to be down like this. So I'm going to rotate them all at once, and then I'm going to deselect maybe the top three and then exaggerate the rotation on the bottom. Okay, so if you think about it, the top part isn't actually going to rotate as much as the bottom part. So you kind of want to shape it in that way. So it's nice and straight there, starts to bend. As the character reverses and comes down because of gravity, that's when it's actually going to start reversing on itself. Okay, so I'm going to zero that off there, and it's going to rotate back this way. Okay, again deselect the first three and then exaggerate the final ones. Maybe bump that up a little bit as well. There we are. Okay, so this is without offsetting at the moment, so it's going to look a little bit weird. But once we do put the offsetting in, it's going to work really well. As she falls to the floor, then this is going to probably come up a little bit more at this point. Okay, it's going to be something like this, so it's not quite straight, but it's pretty close. Okay, that'll do. Right, so character lands, so all that weight comes down, so it's going to arrive later, so it will pre-arrive about 38. So zero all that off, curl it back around. So I'm mostly concentrating on this axis at the moment, not worried too much about this. I'm going to add a bit of texture afterwards to that, but just want the main sort of the driving force is the up and down of this, so I'm just going to concentrate on that for now. Okay. Okay, so it should look something like this. We offset a little bit more. There we are. Great, so character comes back up again. So I'm going to zero that off. Okay, and the rotations won't be as extreme at this point. So it's going to come up. Slightly like that. Okay, because we've got this little hop here. Okay, and then it comes back down into the idle position, so I'm just going to copy and paste the idle position of it here. Okay, and then at this point we just give it just a little bit of texture here as it slightly touches the floor. Bit of rotation in this direction. Okay, we can fix that up in a second. Okay, so next part we're going to do a bit of offsetting on this. Let's bring up the graph editor, let's figure out what's going on there. Okay, that's that bit. So I'm going to leave this bit alone for now. It's mostly just the part after during the jump that I want to start offsetting. So what you do is you select all the controllers like this. Okay, and we're basically going to start deselecting and offsetting. So I'm going to deselect the top controller. Okay, I'm going to select everything all the way along here and offset by 2 frames. And then you deselect, offset by 2 frames, deselect all the way down the hierarchy. Now, towards the end of the animation it's going to get messier and messier, but that's okay, we can fix that afterwards. The main point of doing this is to get a nice overlapping action during the jumping section. Okay, so that's looking okay. I think in general I probably generally offset that too much during this bit. See the way her weight comes down, then it lags, and then it catches up way too late. So I'm just going to borrow some frames from the start there. There we are. Okay, so that should be looking pretty good at this point. I'm going to set it to spline just to make sure there's no flat curves in there causing any stickiness of it. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is go in and start really exaggerating the last couple, because that's what's going to give you that nice kind of whipping action coming through here. That's going to be like really far back. During the reversal here, we kind of want a nice S shape, so I'm just going to really push that quite far. Comes through, exaggerate that bit, this bit as well as it comes back round. Just exaggerate that. Probably keep it on the floor that way. Some people hate animating cloth. I actually really like it. I quite enjoy it. It's very tricky at first. Once you actually get used to it, you can just add so much to your animation. So I'm not quite sure what to do with it at this point, because it comes through her legs at this point, and then there's not quite enough time to bring it back into this position. Sometimes this is